Hello. Ooh. Hello, Big Pod. Hello, Ian. Hello, Mark. How are you all doing? Having a lovely Saturday? It's raining outside, so I decided to... Uh-oh. Hello, Big Pod. Hello, Ian. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Stop that. Stop that. There we go. Stop that. Honestly, I know how to stream. Maybe. Oh my gosh. Well, oh, this is one of the ludicrous tracks. Frame rate's a bit choppy. Choppy, isn't it? It says 60, but I don't believe it. Oh my gosh. What track is this? B07. Oh gosh. Echo. Yeah, sorry about that. Oh. Pro tip. Don't look at the chat. No video. Oh gosh. Idiot. There you go. Yes. See, I completely forgotten how to stream. Should I get rid of that mouse cursor off the screen? Yeah, that'd be good. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. Whoopsie. How's everyone's Saturday? I started off the day making breakfast for the family. Bacon sandwiches. And then took my son to a football match. And the team lost. Oh dear. Hello. Is that Psycho? Psycho Pod or Seiko? How do you pronounce that? Psycho. Is it a play on psychotic? Interestingly, now the frame rate has picked up. Now that I'm actually sending the video. Weird. Yeah. Don't know what's going on there. So who's got the top score on this? So Yannick has the top. I'm gonna have to. I'm not into it at the minute. I need to do a few laps to get properly into it. Oh god! See, look, bumper cars off the side. It's just rubbish. Thank you, Mark. Oh man. So yes, we went to football. My son plays in defence, and it was yeah, it was very rainy. We got rained on quite a lot, soaking wet, and so when we got back in the car, had to put all the blowers on hot, and try and warm ourselves up. Oh wow! Thank you, Psycho. That's very good. So you said yeah. Is that yeah to Psycho or Seiko? That's very kind of you. Thank you for the DKK. What's that? Danish kroner? Is it Danish kroner? Are they called crowns or kroner? I can never remember. I haven't been to Copenhagen for a while. 10 years since I last went to Copenhagen, in fact. In fact, 10 years in October this year, and it was the last Ubuntu UDS ever happened, was in Copenhagen. Yeah, there you go. Fun fact. In fact, I remember that. So the notable thing about that UDS, I think, if I'm right, many notable things. One notable thing, if you look at my Twitter from over the weekend, Psycho Danish kroner. Okay. Oh, whoops. Psycho, brilliant. I like that. I like the way you've phonetically spelt that. Yeah, in Copenhagen, we had these weird hotel rooms. If you follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/popey, and scroll back over, I don't know, whenever it was, Friday or Thursday, I moaned a bit online about having to share hotel rooms. And a whole load of, when I was at Canonical, we used to share hotel rooms. I believe they don't anymore. And there's a whole load of Canonical people, ex-Canonical people, who waded into that thread and talked about their experience of sharing rooms, which was quite hilarious. One MPT, Matthew Paul Thomas, who replied that the thing about not something like having shared rooms means you could have the delight of turning up and finding out that you're sharing a room with the CEO, which is Mark Shuttleworth, which would be a surprise for most people, I would imagine, because usually he shares with his partner. His partner, who also works at the company, comes along, and I assume they share. I mean, I think they share. That's more detail than anyone needs. Anyway, in that thread, I was moaning a bit, and I posted a photo from 10 years ago as me and whoever I'm sharing the room with, whose name will remain nameless, but someone I shared a room with. There was a glass window. I know most windows are glass, aren't they? There's a window between the room and the bathroom, and so you could see your colleague having a shower. It was a bit weird. How do you pronounce that O? Psycho. I live in Rudgobing. Rudgobing? Go is... I don't know how you pronounce that O with a line through it. Rudgobing. Yeah, I like Copenhagen. I used to work in Denmark many years ago. Whoopsie. Many years ago, I worked there for months on a project, and I would fly out there on a Monday morning and fly back. Oh god, that's terrible. And fly home on a Thursday night. So Friday was the day we did our expenses, or did nothing really. Filled our paperwork, because the way it worked was we did this thing called 3-4-5, where you stay away from home for 3 nights, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You work for 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but you bill the customer for 5 days. This is a long time ago. This is like 97, something like that. And yeah, every week I would fly out there on a Monday morning, get the first flight out from Heathrow to Copenhagen, work very long hours, because we would bill the customer for 5 days because we all worked long days, and so they would, rather than bill the customer for 4 days. Oh jeez, I can't get that first corner. Bill the customer for 5 days. You effectively did 40 hours in 4 days. But I used to love going out in Copenhagen. It seemed very clean, and people were very friendly. The bars were great. Everything was a little bit expensive, which is, no problem. Especially when you're drinking beer, which is quite expensive. But it was nice. Lots of good bars and lovely people. It was good. And everywhere was clean, and the offices were nice, and it was all like IKEA, very modern. Yeah, it is an expensive city. And there's cycling everywhere. Like, the Danes are well ahead of us on that. Big Pod welcomes me to a better streaming platform. Is it better? Is it just better because there are more people? Or is it better? I assume you mean better than Twitch, because that's the only other place I've streamed. Yeah, you'll find some other videos like this kind of nonsense over on twitch.tv/PopeyDC. The DC meaning .com. I couldn't get Popey. That's what I do, is when I can't get Popey, I get PopeyDC. And the DC means .com. Yeah, it's not very inventive, is it? So yeah, I have memories of piling in a taxi in Copenhagen and driving out to wherever the office was, and on numerous occasions, one of us almost getting hit by a Big Pod's joining the server. Excellent. He's much better than I am. And it has a shinier car. I don't know if he's got a different skin or whether this is the skin that his car has. But yeah, a number of times we'd get out of the taxi and nearly get hit by cyclists, because cyclists have priority, Ian suggests the DC stands for data center. Yeah, no. That would be quite funny. The Popey data center. So, speaking of Popey data centers, actually, funny you should mention that. Someone tweeted, I can't remember who it was, because I don't know if they have their name in their Twitter account. But someone tweeted that they got an old Dell desktop, and they were wanting to install Linux on it, and they wanted to know what kind of Linux to install on it. I think for a server, like to make a little a hobby, like home lab kind of thing. And it reminded me that I used to have a bunch of Compaq GX1s. I think they're Celeron CPUs. They're really old and crusty. Oh, now I can see Big Pod's car. Nice shiny black car. That looks much better. Yeah, I used to have a pile of these Compaq GX1s in the garage at the end of the garden. And I had them in a pile, just stacked up one on top of the other. And I was trying out various Linux distributions and software on them. Because they were pretty easy to use. I think they all had optical drives. Yeah, they were pretty old and crusty. And this was 12 years ago, maybe more. Oh, sugar. I missed the turn. So yeah, it was good fun having those old Compaq desktops. They really, Dell desktops. They really did well at just running reliably as a small server kind of thing. No redundancy. Like you could only fit one disk in it. I don't think you could fit a second disk in. Maybe you could. Maybe you could stack one on top of the other. I can't remember. I don't think so. I guess you could take the optical drive out and put one in there. But yeah, I used to try out all kinds of distros on them. Big Pod says this is better from a technical perspective. Yeah, I heard Wimpy talking about you can stream higher. Whoa! Speaking of higher, higher bandwidth to YouTube than you can to Twitch, or it's more forgiving or something. Oh man, I'm suck at this. There's no way I'm gonna get up there. Yeah. Psycho says I'm all for cycling in the big city. I'm going to have to come back and read that when I'm not trying to negotiate a racing track, probably. Yes, can everyone please keep their comments under 5 words so I can read them without crashing my car? I'm only joking. You can leave as long a comment as you like. Whoa. Let's wait until the end of the race to read that. Yes. Yeah, we had one occasion where... What happened there? What? I thought I went through the... Did I miss a checkpoint or something? Oh, I must have done. Oh well. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Look, it goes round, 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 and then... Round, round, and then through the... oh, okay, maybe not. I'm streaming. You right? My coat pocket. Left hand side. Excuse me. That was family. You know, they just come in when you're streaming. Hopefully, you're not going to have any of those kind of disasters that you see on. There's a subreddit called Livestream Fails. r/livestream fails. It's mostly, you know, people accidentally naked on a live stream, or people who've been revealed to be, you know, bad people and done bad things on live streams, and they've been caught or something, or caught lying or something. It's not a very positive, kind place, to be honest. Yay! And I don't expect to feature in there anytime soon. So I am currently 33 seconds, and oh my gosh, that's my record on this track, but I can't imagine getting much faster. Let's try. The other thing I really liked about Copenhagen, sorry to go back and witter on about Copenhagen, is oh damn it. There was this walking street. They call it the... Oh, I don't know whether it's a direct translation of Danish, but it was called the Walking Street. And it went from, I think, basically where the bus depot is and where our hotel was, and along there all the way to some landmark. I think it was... I can't remember what the landmark was. But anyway, there's loads of shops, like retail stuff, and loads of bars along there. And there was one bar that I used to go in every time we were there. Usually on a Thursday. No, not a Thursday. Wednesday night. Wednesday night was chill out night. We'd go in there, and me and a guy called Gareth that I work with would sing karaoke. And I cannot sing. So I apologise to all the Danish people who were in that bar whenever me and Gareth were singing. He can sing. He's Welsh. Got a big voice, Gareth. But that was my Welsh. Oh, God. This is terrible. He has a big voice, and he could sing, you know, some of the crooner tracks. I, on the other hand, sound awful. Well, I think I do. I think it's one of those things. I think you either know you have a good singing voice or you don't, and I'm pretty sure I don't. Not that I've ever tried. Yeah. Other than, you know, 15 years ago in a bar in Copenhagen. But the problem was, it was okay doing that because I knew nobody in Copenhagen knew who I was. And so it was okay because if anyone, like, these are all strangers, and singing in front of strangers is perfectly fine because, you know, they don't know who you are. But one night in Copenhagen, I sang, in inverted commas, I sang in the bar. And then me and Gareth went to the Irish bar, which is a bit further along the walking street. Really big Irish bar. For a beer, a post-sing-along beer. And a whole troop of pretty young women came in off of one of the boats, clearly dancers off one of the cruise ships. And one of them pointed at me across the bar and went, "I know you. I work with your mum." And I was like, oh, that's a shame. I can't come in here anymore because people know me. Yeah. Oh, Psycho, thank you again. It's a good question there. Any new podcast perspectives in the future? Is that in reference to the Ubuntu podcast, I suppose? So yeah, for anyone who didn't know, I was one of the instigators of the Ubuntu podcast many years ago, and then we wrapped it up last year. 13th season, I think. Was it 13 or 12? I can't remember. Something like that. Anyway, we decided to end it. And... oh, bum. Forgot about this track. No, I don't. I don't have any current plans. The problem with doing the podcast is if you want to do... it's really hard. I can't really say a successful podcast because I'm not entirely sure what defines a successful podcast. Like, you know, 3 listeners... is that a success? Or the fact that you recorded it and put it out, is that a success? How do you measure a successful podcast? Anyway, my measure, personally, was I wanted people to listen to it. And I wanted to get feedback from people. I wanted to get emails and people to sit in our chat room and chat to us and stuff. And I think we enjoyed doing it a lot of the time. But it was time consuming. And not super time consuming because it was only like half an hour show every week. But it was the point I was trying to make was if you want to make a successful podcast, really you need to be reliable and you need to crank out an episode regularly, whether it's every week or monthly or whatever it is. It needs to be consistent. I think consistency is key. To get people to listen. And we would have people in our channel, in our chat room, who would say, oh, no episode this week, because they expected it. And they were hoping for an episode that they could listen to. Because people know when episodes of podcasts come out. I know I do. There's podcasts that I know come out on a Wednesday night, and I wait for them on Thursday or something. Because it's not that you organise your life around this content, but sometimes it features, you know, it bookmarks or features as part of your day or your night. And so it's a good idea to be consistent and be reliable. And And also the other thing is you need to be enthusiastic about the topic. And given that I left Canonical back in May last year, I was less enthusiastic about doing a podcast. I'll be honest. My enthusiasm for Ubuntu waned slightly when I left the company. In fact, my enthusiasm for the product waned while I was at the company, and then I left the company. So that's partly why, from my perspective, we stopped. We all had our own reasons, but yeah, that was partly it. We could have carried on, I guess, and bear in mind that when we first started, none of us worked for Canonical, so it was only we were all members of the community, but none of us actually worked for Canonical, and it wasn't until a few years in that Dave got a job. Dave was one of the original OG presenters. He got a job at Canonical, and then later, who else? Was it me? Yeah, me. And then Martin got a job at Canonical. So, we became... It was frustrating because at some points people kept, they're just Canonical shills. They're just, marketing the Canonical line, and that's really unfair. I mean, there were certainly stories that we didn't cover that we knew about because it was NDA, and that's just like legally. I'm under contract to this company. I can't talk about this thing because I'm under NDA. But there are other things which may have been negative topics in the community that we just didn't want to touch because we tried not to be super negative about Ubuntu. Because part of the reason for the podcast was commenting on Ubuntu, but it was also advocacy and promoting the thing. And so we tried to be positive as much as we could. And some people don't like that. Some people would rather your warts and all, and you don't rein in any negative feelings you have about a product you're talking about. And that's really difficult. If you're an independent journalist or something, sure, it's easy to do. I could do a podcast about, I don't know, network cards or something and be independent about it because I don't have any interest in, I'm not no financial interest in or personal interest in the companies that make network cards, right? But given that Martin and I both worked for Canonical, we had an interest in Ubuntu, and so it was very difficult for us to be seen as being impartial as much as we wanted to. But then, Martin left and I left, and then we decided, our hearts weren't in it, and so we gave it up. That doesn't mean I'll never do another podcast, but I know what the commitment was like to do a podcast, and so, and the only reason I did the Ubuntu podcast is because I was super interested in it. I don't have something that I'm super interested about and have some knowledge about that I would feel to be authoritative about something. Now, that hasn't stopped me in the past. I've talked about stuff on Ubuntu podcast, and I've seriously not been an authority on that subject. Does that answer your question, Psycho? I feel I should, given you've kindly donated, I feel like I should give you a comprehensive answer, and that's about as comprehensive as I can get. I mean, what you're really asking is, in the future, what podcast will I do? And because I know what the commitment is like, and the podcast, the Ubuntu podcast, we would record every Tuesday, right? It moved. The early days, forget about the early seasons where it was all over the place. But in later seasons, we recorded on a Tuesday night at 8:30. That was the goal. Start recording at 8:30. Record 2 half-hour episodes. Haha. And then we would edit them as 2 separate... They were recorded as 2 separate recordings, and we would edit them, and then in later seasons, Joe Ressington edited them for us. And we would put them out separately. And I noticed, actually, Joe has learned from this, and now Late Night Linux does the same thing. They record 2 episodes back-to-back on one night, which means you're only actually recording every other week, which is really nice, because it means you get a Tuesday off every other week. You're not recording every week, because it's a bit of a slog. Now, the other thing to note is we never, in the initial times, we never asked for donations, PayPal or Patreon or anything like that initially, because we were all gainfully employed, and it wasn't too much of a financial hardship for us, and it was something we were enthusiastic about. So we didn't need people to pay us money to do the podcast. We didn't need sponsors or anything like that. Technically, we had a sponsor, Bitfolk, and the reason they're a sponsor is because they host the box that the podcast is hosted on, right? VPS, and they provided that for free. And Andy is a good friend of ours, and he was very kind enough to provide that free bandwidth, free hosting, free VPS, right? We manage it, but it sits on his infrastructure and we uses his bandwidth and so on. So we technically did have a sponsor for the entire run, but it wasn't like, you know, we had to do ad reads, and he never put any imposition on us. He never told us, you know, you got to mention Bitfolk so many times. In fact, he sometimes told me, I'm really surprised, you know, you really don't have to mention Bitfolk. You don't have to do it. You know, when we would ask him, oh, is there any chance we can get a bigger disc because we're running out of space? And he's like, yeah, and he did it. Or, you know, we asked to be moved to a whatever, faster server, or whatever it was that we asked for. We asked for it. He said yes, he did it, and we felt compelled to talk about, you know, his product because he's providing it for free. And he was like, you don't have to, you know, I really don't mind. But there was always a link on the website, and we always made effort, especially in the later years, we always made effort to put it in the show notes that we would mention Bitfolk. Because while not a, you know, sponsor in the way that some people do ad reads for Linode or, you know, whatever toothbrush company there is or whatever podcasters are currently talking about, we never did ad reads. And so as a result, we didn't have like a monetary motivation. Like, there's a motivation for you to get out of bed in the morning to go to work, and there was never a financial motivation for us to make the podcast. And when there's no financial motivation and you're just doing it for the love of it, it's very different. And if you're doing it just for the love of it, then you've got to really love the thing you're talking about. And I don't know that I could do a podcast about something I don't really love, unless it was something abstract, like, you know, talking about, I don't know, anything that's not a product. I can't imagine, like, you know, a podcast about the films you've watched or something like that, you know. But there's 1,000 of those, and other people are way more articulate at expressing themselves and expressing, you know, films. So I'm not saying films is the way. I'm just using that as an example of a kind of podcast that's not necessarily tied to a product, if you know what I mean. God, that's the longest answer for a question ever, isn't it? I've had a couple of personal bests on this track. I don't know how. I'm driving atrociously. Last lap, I think, is it? I quite like this track. It's got the nice mix of dirt, a little bit of dirt section like this, and then it's got some tricksy corners like this one, like that, and some nice little flat out bits where you can get a bit of speed, and then some wibbly wobbly technical term, some wibbly wobbly bits, and yeah, I quite like that. That's a good track, would like that. So Ian says, what about something like user error? Yeah, user error is very different from the Ubuntu podcast. Excuse me, sip of coffee. So user error, I think it was Joe's idea, I guess, and he approached me and Dan and said, would you like to do this thing, take over user error from Chris, because Chris and brain fart, what's her name, Chris's wife, ex-wife, it's in my head but it won't come out. Angela, there we go, boom, got it. I was thinking of all the different female names that begin with A, and Angela just didn't come into my head. Anyway, Chris and Angela used to do user error, as I understand it. I never watched it, never listened to it, right? It just wasn't a thing I pay attention to. Yeah, wibbly wobbly refers to time travel and racetracks. So Chris and Angela did it for a long time, I think. But Joe, I guess, had a conversation with Chris and said, let's take over. So we did. And it was good fun. I enjoyed doing user error. It was really good fun. The thing was, though, I spent almost zero effort preparing it. Joe did basically the lion's share of the work. He would just give us a bunch of questions the day before or the day of recording. Sometimes we'd negotiate them and say, oh no, that's like something we've talked about before, and we do a little bit of prep on a Telegram channel. But that was it. We'd then have a lineup, which was basically Joe asking a bunch of questions. Where he got these questions from is interesting. He would ask the community to give us questions, and for a while we had a discourse server, but it wasn't the kind of podcast that lent itself to building a community. It was really just throwaway, funny, in places podcast. It's not like so another podcast that's like this is called Answer Me This. It's been around for years and years and years, and the two people who do it are quite professional. Three people who do it, sorry, are quite professional. One of them works in radio. The other one, I think her job was she was a copywriter or book reviewer, or like she would review text. I can't remember what that word is that means someone who reviews other people's text before they get editor, that kind of thing. So yeah, they're both very bright people and articulate, well educated. And then there's me, Dan, and Joe on user error. Joe's quite well read and quite well educated, despite what it might seem, the way he comes across sometimes. But he's a bright guy, and he would ask the community for questions. And actually, I don't think we got a tremendous number from the audience. Like, some people would tweet at us and say, ask a question, but I don't think we got a lot. I think most of them came from Joe. Joe shifted his day to edit late in the UK time, and then go to sleep at like 3 a.m. and then wake up at late, like afternoon or something like that. Because he was in sync with Chris over in West Coast USA, so 8 hours difference. And Joe would go for a walk sometimes, pre-pandemic, and user error is pre-pandemic. He would go out for a walk and have big thinks while he was out. He would think about stuff, and I think he would come up with some of the questions while he's out thinking. I don't know if he was inspired by like other content, podcasts he's listening to, or radio programs or whatever, or books he's reading or something, but he would always come up with something. Sometimes we would be like scratching around for a question, and so my point is, me and Dan did basically bugger all to contribute to user error. Joe did all the work and we did nothing other than turn up and answer his stupid questions, some of which were quite good fun. And so user error was fun, but my point is, I know that it required effort, and sometimes it was difficult for Joe to get content, get ideas. We would sometimes run out of things to talk about. In fact, we did on the Ubuntu podcast sometimes as well. We always managed to pull it out the bag and have something to talk about. And sometimes the ad hoc segments that we would do in the second episode, because as I said, we did 2 episodes back to back. Often in the second episode, we'd have a long segment and we'd come up with some discussion topic. And it might be about something in the news, or it might be just something we were thinking about. And often, leaving it till the last minute meant we got a topic that we hadn't already discussed or thought about a lot. And so our thoughts were coming out raw on the podcast. Now, I would not advocate for making a podcast with zero preparation. It just doesn't... you don't get consistency, and it's not reliable, and people won't listen. But that said, sometimes the podcast episodes with the least amount of prep turned out to be the best, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's you're just you're forming those thoughts brand new at the point when the podcast is being recorded, rather than having a conversation about, well, I'm going to take this position, you take that position, which is what I know some podcasters do. They choose a topic and then they spread out across the spectrum of, opinions, so that they can have a conversation that represents multiple angles. Because, and I know Joe's mentioned this to me in the past, he partly does that on some of his shows, because if you don't, people don't get engaged, because they think, well, these three guys all believe the same thing. They're, robotic, unable to have a fully formed thought of their own, and they can only agree with each other, their co-hosts. And I know Joe doesn't like that kind of content. I don't think he does either. I'm speaking for Joe a lot here. I'm sorry, Joe, if you're listening, which I know you're not. Anyway, that's my point. Yeah, Joe. The thing about Joe is he's. I don't really want to say too much because he's a relatively private person, but he's only been in podcasting for a few years. Like, he's not. Prior to, well, I say a few years. It's been quite a few years now, hasn't it? What was the one before Late Night Linux? The one where Paddy and him and oh god, what's the other guy's name? Jesse. What was it they used to do? It was called Linux Grumpy People or something. What was it called? One of you knows what it's called. It was something to do with them not wanting change. What was it called? Anyway, I think that was his first, of his own podcasts. And he's cranked out a whole bunch. And he's gone out and done the effort to get sponsors. And Linux Luddites, thank you, Ian. Yes, that was the one. He's gone out and done the work to get sponsors. And I think going back to user error, I don't think... Did we ever have sponsors? I don't even think we did. Yeah, I don't think we did. And I think we didn't have enough listeners. I couldn't tell you how many listeners we had, or how many downloads. You never know how many listeners you've got. You know how many downloads you get. And so I don't think we had a tremendous number of listeners. We had an enthusiastic audience who would ping us when an episode was coming, and ask, and people who would ping us with their responses and stuff. But it wasn't super high listeners. It's not like, you got Joe Rogan at one end, and then some guy, I don't know, talking about desks at the other end with 3 listeners who are, that's their community and they're passionate listeners. And we were somewhere in the middle, at the lower end of the middle. I know Ubuntu podcast, I think we wavered between 5,000 and 10,000 downloads per episode. I think on a good year it was 10,000, on a bad year it was 5,000. Quite a few of those downloads would be within the first day. It was, so we knew we had people who had subscribed to us. No idea how many people listened. The one way to gauge how many people listen is people entering contests. And if you say something mildly controversial, you get a lot of feedback. But with every podcast, I've got 100 podcasts on my podcasting app, and 99.9% of them I have never interacted with the hosts in any way. Never gone into their chat room, never sent them an email, never taken a survey, never done anything. And I think that's very common for podcasts, for the audience to be passive, listening and not engaging. They might talk about the show, and they might even tell friends, hey, you should listen to this thing because it's really good. But they almost certainly won't, oh, yay, I've improved my time. Won't engage with the people. Psycho says, also pretty sure Joe's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to audio production. That's the other thing I didn't mention, yes, is Joe is very skilled and opinionated about audio production on Linux. And so having the opinions and the skills means he can say, that sucks, and here's how you fix it. Or throw a bag of money at me and I'll fix it. And that's what we ended up doing. So in the last couple of seasons, hang on, sip of coffee time. Yum. In the final seasons, we asked for Patreon simply because we were sick of editing it, and Joe offered to edit it for us at a price, because that's his job, right? And so we got the Patreon money to pay Joe, and it wasn't a tremendous amount of money. I mean, it's roughly his going rate. It's not something I'm not going to talk about money, but you know, we would send all the money to him. Martin, Mark, and me never saw a penny of that. So again, going back to the motivation for doing a podcast, I've got a full-time job. I don't. The word need is bad, because everyone needs a few quid extra now and then, and it doesn't hurt to be able to buy a new microphone or a video card. But when we started the Ubuntu podcast, it wasn't like we were scratching around for the money to buy a microphone and and drive and get the bus fare to get to each other's houses to do the recording. We were fortunate enough to all be in full-time employment, and so that wasn't a problem. But for Joe, this is his job. This is his job. And so, if we want decent sounding podcast audio, then either we learn how to do it ourselves and do it properly, or he does it. So, or you throw a bag of money at a man and get them to do it for you, and that's what we chose to do. We gave Joe some money, and he did it, and he slotted it in between all the other podcasts that he's either recording or prepping or editing or whatever, producing. So yeah, if I was going to do a podcast, would I really want to? Because I would need to. If I don't really want to edit the audio, I hate doing that, and I'm not very good at it. I can just about get audio out that sounds okay, but it's not like I'm an expert at it. It's not my field of expertise, and I don't really want to become an expert at it, to be honest. It's yet another thing to consume your time, because for every hour you record, you've got to spend 2 hours processing it, and so any hour of content becomes 3 hours, plus you've got to prepare it, and so there's another hour minimum, and so 1 hour of content is actually 4 hours of work. Holy shit, I'm doing quite well this week with this track, he says, and then immediately screws up. You plum. Okay. Any other questions that I can answer while I'm here? Ask me anything. Anything at all. Ah! Alan, how is it you drive so badly? Well, let me tell you. Psycho says, I love 2.5 admins and late night Linux, but he does sound like a grumpy guy, and that's why I really like his content. He does sound like a grumpy guy, and that's why I really like his content. Oh, okay. You like the grumpiness. Okay. It's funny, we did OggCamp a few years ago in Oxford, and we had a panel on stage, and someone asked a question about improving Linux or something. Joe's answer, he was sat next to me at the time, and his answer was, everyone should stop making new software and fix all the existing stuff, which was quite funny. Oh, whoops. Oh, this is warm up, so it's okay. I managed to flip my car. Whoopsie. Yeah, and so Joe, you've said it yourself, Psycho. He's very keen on the traditional desktop paradigm, as Martin calls it, with XFCE being his desktop of choice, which is great. Everyone should have their own favourite work environment that works for them. Oh, man. But it did make me chuckle that, stop writing software, stop doing that, do this. You can't. You just can't tell people what to write. It's like telling people stop making books, stop making films. Go back and fix all the existing films. It's like, I know that analogy doesn't work. I get that. You can't tell people to stop making new things. Like, that's unfair. That's like assuming that once you get to flight, there's no more human innovation left in the world, and that's just not true. Like, who would have thought that I saw a news article yesterday that they've cured someone of HIV, a third person of HIV, right? In the 80s, it was unheard of. There was no way that this thing could get... There was never going to be a cure for this thing. And yet, March of Science and medical science in particular, especially spurned on by the event, has resulted in treatments for things that, we didn't think there would be a treatment for. And so I think the whole don't make new stuff, fix the old stuff is just never going to fly. Big Board says, you took that question out of my mind. I don't know which question that was. Sorry, it was a while ago. I missed it. What's the carrying weight of a European swallow? I don't know that. Monty Python reference. I do love a bit of Monty Python. I think that's the appeal of this live streamy stuff. Is this requires near zero prep in order to do. I literally walked into this room and opened OBS and opened Steam and played the game. And clearly I didn't do any prep because I started the stream with the thing wrong. Video wrong. Ian says, will we ever have another rat event, or do you think that idea has lost steam? Oh, very good. Well done, Ian. So, rat. For those who don't know, the rat stands for Real Ale Train, affectionately known as the beer train. And the beer train is a steam locomotive, like a ye olde style steam train, with a bunch of old carriages from the past with slam doors, like old British Rail carriages. And you can buy tickets to go on this train. And in between those carriages, there is a beer carriage. And at the other end, there's a food carriage. And in the beer carriage, there's loads of real ale, as in like warm, flat, cloudy beer. In barrels, and you and a bunch of friends go and get a seat on the train, and you go and get beer from the beer carriage, and you sit down and drink beer, and the train chugs backwards and forwards 3 times across not a significant distance, but it takes hours. It's a few hours of train chugging, back and forth, and it stops a few times, so you can get out and you can go and have a look at the engine, nerds like to. How does it work? Whoa, look at the big engine. Look at all the flames. Look at all the coal and all that. You could do a bit of that. And then you could stretch your legs as well. And then you could get back on the train. And then the train carries on, get another beer. And they also have food. Oh, you idiot. The food consists of curry and chili and rice. And that's basically it. But it is glorious. It is fantastic. It's basically a pub on wheels. Is what it is. And loads and loads of people on it. And it's hilarious. And Ian is asking because we used to have a regular real ale train, beer train thing with the UK Ubuntu Linux community, and a bunch of people who didn't even run Ubuntu, and some of them didn't even run Linux, but they were just friends, and our friends would go, and we would buy tickets. And the tickets weren't super expensive. I think they were like £12, something like that, for a ticket. And then the beer was pretty cheap. I think it was £2 a pint, maybe. That sounds ludicrously cheap, because beer is like £4 or £5 a pint now in a pub. But I think it was pretty cheap. So yeah, and it was great. And obviously, COVID killed that. Get away, big pod. Oh, I keep clouting that corner. I need to steer around that little corner, that little bit that sticks out. But yes, I think it would be good to have another beer train. The question about driving badly. Yes. How is the stream holding up for that, if anyone is actually watching? Is it actually working? Because I've not changed any... Oh, actually, I have changed the setting. I have changed the setting. So on Twitch, I have the video downsampled to 1586 by, I don't know, 864 or something like that. Because Martin told me to. And the reason it's that resolution on Twitch is because most people watch Twitch in a web browser, and just missed it. And that resolution, 1586 or whatever it is by 864, is the size of the video player, the default video player. But here I have changed it and I've turned that off, and so I think it's streaming at 1080p. Maybe, I don't know. So you tell me. Is this streaming on YouTube at 1080p? 108060 is what it should be. If it is, I'll be amazed, because I didn't think it would just work. Yes, Peacemaker, I think you're right. I think... nerds and trains. Yes, very much so. Planes, trains, and automobiles. What nerds? More trains and planes than automobiles, eh? Coming through loud and clear from Martin. Hello, Martin. How are you doing? Thank you very much. Thank you for confirming. What's everyone up to today? It was blowing a hoolie yesterday, and today it was raining like cats and dogs. I got absolutely soaked watching my son play football. And afterwards, when we got in the car and I had all the warm blowers on, he said, you could have just come and sat in the car. I wouldn't have minded if you didn't watch the match and you just come and sat in your car. I was like, now he tells me. But no, I went for a walk around the pitch. I did 3 laps of the football pitch while he was playing football, and I listened to a podcast while I was going for a walk. And the podcast I listened to was another one of those ones where I mentioned earlier, callback, I mentioned earlier that some people, like, there are certain podcasts that they look out for on certain days. And this is a podcast I really like. It's called ATP, Accidental Tech Podcast. And it's very Apple-oriented, like very, very Apple-oriented. They talk about tech in general and app design and app development, but it's mostly an Apple podcast, really. The 3 of them are Apple fanboys, is that the right word? Users, consumers, I guess. So, but it's a very successful podcast. They've got merchandise and they've got people who subscribe as members of their club or whatever you want to call it. And they have like top tier sponsors, like people like Linode and stuff like that. And I suspect they have tons and tons of listeners, and they stream live as well. But it's at like ludicrous time in the morning when I'm not getting up at 1 a.m. to listen to some people record a podcast. Psycho says getting 1080p 60 smooth. Awesome. So I'm sending 7 meg a second or thereabouts, which is Quite a lot, I think. CPU's 33%, sending 60. No dropped frames. That's pretty good, I think. Yeah. Leviticus, hello Leviticus, says, what's that your logo in your avatar, Leviticus? It looks like the letter K stylized like the Pop OS P logo, which, if it is, I think is brilliant. Is that because you use KDE, or is that a KDE spin of Pop OS or something like that? I need to know. Loop-de-loop. And, oh god. Oh, this is this one, isn't it? With the giant. I hate this one. And also love it. Hey, board. So your question was, looks like a Corolla AE86. This car that I'm driving is, I can't remember what it's called. I found it on Steamworks. Yeah, it's a Nissan Skyline, isn't it? Yeah, it says Skyline at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, if the resolution is good enough, but just below the spoiler on the boot. I was looking at the boot then. It says Skyline. I think it's some kind of Nissan Skyline type thing, I guess. I'm not a car expert. Peacemaker says snow all day. Oh my gosh, whereabouts are you, Peacemaker? Are you in the northern hemisphere somewhere? And specifically, roughly, I don't want to know your address, just like you are. I'd love to have snow. Like my colleagues at work, one of them lives in Utah, and the other one's in New Mexico, and another one's in Idaho. Oh, I thought I was going to hit that post then. No, I hit the wall instead. And I think they've all had snow at some point. Damn it. Finally stopped around 12. Oh, wow. I love snow. I'm one of those I'd rather be cold than hot kind of people. Because when you're cold, you can just put more clothes on. Put more layers on. Wear more stuff. But, yeah, when you're... Hey, Big Calm's in. Hello, Ian. But when you're hot, it's just nothing you can do. You can get all hot and sweaty and uncomfortable and blah. And you can't take clothes off because, like, nobody wants to see this fat body naked. Blah. I'll come back to the chat in a moment. Yeah, I'd quite, you know, I fantasize sometimes. I don't fantasize, that's the wrong word. But I would love to be snowed in. That would be awesome. I know everyone who's ever been snowed in is probably saying, "You idiot! You don't want that. Don't wish that." But I do. Martin says, good to hear from you again. Did wonder what happened to you when you left Canonical. I disappeared. So I can talk about that. Big Pod says, read part of a book, lift off, watching a stream and beating you in TrackMania. Wow. Burn. What's the book Lift Off? What's that about? Hopefully I can get you to talk about that book a lot, and that will put you off your driving, and I will win. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yep. No. Come on. Beat him. And then, boom! Personal best, I think. Was it 31? Oh no, it's not. Oh, close. Yeah, what's this book Lift Off about? I imagine something to do with space travel. Psycho says no drop frames. Great. Stats for nerds. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. You can do stats for nerds in YouTube, can't you? Ah, Burnsy3210 says it's an old Hakusoka Skyline. What is Hakusoka? Is it a Japanese 80s Japanese car manufacturer, I guess? Hakusoka. Japanese stuff is great, isn't it? Like, just generally. Oh, whoa, too early. Oh, you idiot. Look, there's a skid going into the wall. It's always good to see your mistakes indelibly marked on the track. Thanks for that. TrackMania developers. Damn it. Oh my god. This is appalling. I had a good lap on this once. Oh, just made it. Right, let's reverse over the line. Check my guy out. Right. Yeah, Big Bob would rather be cold as well. Hi, Popey. Hi, Burnsy. Peacemakers in Manchester. Okay. It's just a bit further north and her street's completely under. Oh, I'm so envious. We never get that down here in the tropical south. Hey, Monica, how you doing? Have your wonderful driving on a big screen TV while I clean this morning. Oh, I hope it doesn't put you off your cleaning as much as your cleaning would probably put me off my driving. Mother and daughter are out today. Sophie's she's gone to a dance festival, so dance contest thing. She's got some rehearsals, and then oh, that was close. And then she's going to a festival where she's performing a couple of dances. Oh, that was all right. Ian says game does not like running on Intel GPU. You can dial down like everything, like go into the graphics settings and like turn off everything, like literally everything, and bring the resolution down to 720p. You might get away with it then. Oh. Whoa. Sorry for the weird noises that I make when I'm driving. I don't do that when I'm normally driving. Narrator, he does. Peacemaker says, yeah, snow's the best. Was hoping it'd stick around rather than turning into frozen mush. Yeah, that's the worst part, is it just turns into frozen mush. Need to work out how to get it to use NVIDIA. Ah, I can tell you that, Ian. I can tell you how to do that. If you haven't figured it out already, I can tell you. So, there is a setting, a command line environment variable thing that you can set in the launch options in Steam. And the one that everyone says you need to use is DRI_prime. This is not correct, because this does not respect that, because it's Proton. And Proton, you need to specify a DXVK environment variable. It's like DXVK _ something _ something. Now, I realize that's not specific enough to help you. But you know what? I could forgo. How do you use Intel for desktop? And then, yes, that is exactly what I'm doing. Let me see if I can bring my Steam window up and I can show you. Oh, there we go. So if we go to settings, properties, there you go. This is what you need. DXVK filter device name equals. Now I'm using Vega M because I've got an AMD Vega GPU. But there are other options to set that to, that DXVK filter device name. I don't know whether you put NVIDIA. So the key things I've learned is this gets ignored. The DRI prime gets ignored. The DXVK filter device name equals is the important bit that will make it launch on the right GPU. And then Proton log equals 1 is super handy because then it generates a log file, and so you can see when it goes wrong. And then you need the % command %. But that's the thing you want to Google for, and that will coerce Proton to use the right GPU. Vega M looks like an incorrect spelling of vegan. Yes, it does. So the computer I'm using, it has an Intel CPU married with an AMD GPU on one chip. It's a weird hybrid thing that I think this is like the only computer that has it in. It's a NUC. It's a Hades Canyon NUC. If you Google Hades Canyon NUC, it's a bit old. It's not brand new, but it's capable of running this at 60 FPS and encoding the video as well that I'm streaming. So, you know, it's no slouch. It's all right. Monica says, things are good. Husband is sleeping in. I walked down to our leasing office for a free coffee and breakfast. That's fantastic. So there we go, into the mother of all travel shops. Shopping, dinner, and then Dungeons and Dragons. Wicked. Martin's in Old Trafford. It did try to snow earlier. Oh. I haven't been to Manchester for a while. When was the last time I went to Manchester? Why was I in Manchester? I went there once for... what's that mobile phone? Oh, God, I'm not being specific enough. Website. XDA developers. There was like an XDA Con or something. What's it called? It's not called XDA Con. Was it XDA Con? There was a thing in Manchester. And it was a very mobile phone centric conference. And yeah, there were talks from lots of people about mobile phone related stuff. Did I give a talk? I think I gave a talk. Oh my God, I did. About Ubuntu Phone, I think. God, flashbacks. Yeah, me and Daniel Hoback on the community team went there. Met a whole load of XDA, phone people, and the event was sponsored by Sony, and there were people from OnePlus there as well, doing their whole marketing shtick of trying to get people to recommend OnePlus to their friends and all that stuff. Burnsy wants to build a new PC. Haven't done it since 2008. So, yeah, I haven't built a computer. In fact, I can't remember the last time I built a computer. Oh my God, I'm going to show my age now and tell you that the last computer I built had a Pentium 2 in it. Pentium 2, P400, I think. Pentium 2. It was the CPU that was in a slot, like in a black plastic slot loader, and it had an edge connector, and you like slam the edge connector into the motherboard. Maybe that was P3. The P3, something like that. P2, P3, something like that. That was the last computer I built, and that would have been in 1997. I've never built a computer since then. Yeah, that's true. I've only ever bought pre-built or laptops. I bought a ZooStorm PC years ago. No, it wouldn't have been 1997, would it? Really? Was it that long ago? I've actually got a photo of it. I've got a photo of the computer with the lid off because, all professional computing enthusiasts run their computer with the lid removed. And I know it's a photo from 1997 because it's in a room in a house that I lived in back then. And there are two computers in the photo. One is a Pentium P400 with this slot loading CPU, whatever it was. And the other one is my previous computer to that, which was a Pentium 200, P200, made by a company called Dan Computers. My gosh. Yeah. Slot 1, that's what it was called. Slot 1. That's it. Those were the days. Yeah, so the last desktop computer I bought, I think, was this ZooStorm thing. And that was nearly 10 years ago. When did the Sandy Bridge desktop PCs come out? What are they? First generation, second generation? Are they second generation Core i7? That's what's in it. So I bought this ZooStorm, and it was relatively bare bones, just like a mini desktop. And it had no GPU, onboard graphics, Intel i7 Sandy Bridge, whatever that is. And I've had that since I bought it, whenever that was contemporary. And that is now my son's computer. He plays Valorant, Fortnite, Minecraft, Counter-Strike. He plays all kinds of stuff on that thing. And that CPU is a decade old, I think. It's so crusty and awful. He has, upgraded it, and he's replaced the case. He's got a nice shiny white case with blue LEDs and all that nonsense. And he's got a new GPU, 1080 Ti or something like that, I guess, which is good enough, just about. But it's kind of straining at the edges, and cracks are beginning to show in this computer. But he's had it like years, so he keeps threatening to buy a new motherboard. And oh my gosh, that was a record for me, 2nd place. Check me out. I wasn't even paying attention. He wants to get a new motherboard, CPU, but now's not the time to do any of that. You know, with the market as it is, it's just rubbish. Oh man, this is not going to be a record-breaking track, is it? Lap, rather. Crusty with staying power. Yes, actually, you're right, Monica. It does have staying power. The fact that he's still using it every day. He's on it right now. And like he's got like significant user experience upgrades. Like he's got a decent mechanical keyboard. He's got a decent mouse. He's got a nice mat on his desk, big mat on his desk. He's got 2 Dell monitors. And like I said, the Dell 1080 Ti or whatever it is, might be more than that, but I think it's a 1080 Ti. It's not bad, you know. He's got an SSD in there as well, so it's it's like was it Ship of Theseus or Trigger's Broom? It's not really the original Zoo Storm PC. I think there are literally 2 components left of the original Zoo Storm PC in that box, and that is the CPU and the motherboard. That's it. The RAM's been replaced. The power supply's been replaced. The case has been replaced. Everything except the processor and the motherboard have been upgraded. Oh dear. Oh dear. Ian's machine is broken, it seems. What is up with your machine? Tell us, Ian. Tell us. Maybe someone will be technical support and help you unbreak it. Martin's Big Pod said, oh sorry, I need to catch up with chat. Last computer, quad core. First computer I built. Wow. Burnsy wants a System 76 Thalio, but they're expensive. Shipped from North America and use NVIDIA GPUs. Yeah. They are quite pretty, those Thalio things. They have a good eye for design, System 76. Later, Big Pod. Oh, I heard you coming up behind me then. But I'm out of here. Later, skaters. Oh, crunch. Yeah, System 76 makes some nice hardware. Those ones with a bit of wood paneling. It's quite innovative. Big Pod's planning to buy new parts and make a PC for themselves. His personal laptop's about to die. His cooling is basically done. Yeah, I keep pondering whether to bust open a couple of my laptops. What was it you were saying about you beating me at this game, Big Pod? I keep thinking about busting open my laptops and refreshing the thermal paste. Everyone says it's like, oh yeah, everyone, you should do that. Yeah, you should totally do that. Oh, I just can't be bothered. I just can't be bothered. I'm still rocking a ThinkPad T450 as my primary personal laptop, which is, I say like primary, it's not the main machine I use on a daily basis. At work, they gave me a ThinkPad X1 Carbon. I joined the company May last year, and I had a choice of 4 different laptops. 3 options were Apple. 1 option was a ThinkPad. And so I was like, well, I'll get the ThinkPad. And I got the X1. Oh, it's warm up. I don't care. I got the X1 Carbon. And I paired it with a GPU enclosure, external GPU enclosure. So that's at my office, which is not here at home. And I've got an NVIDIA 1050 Ti in an external eGPU connected via Thunderbolt. Works brilliantly. I've got 3 displays running off that GPU. And the X1 Carbon is pretty good. It survives pretty well. I've done a couple of streams on it in the mornings before I start work. And yeah, it's a bit of a monster, that computer. It lasting pretty well. But my home personal laptop is a ThinkPad T450. I'm all about ThinkPads, as you're probably aware if you know me. And that's been through the wars a little bit. I bought it second hand. I bought it from, I think I got it off eBay. Was it eBay or... There's a UK reseller of like old stock and refurbished stuff. They're called Tier 1 Online. And I recommend them. I don't get any, I've got no deal with them. Whoopsie! I think you got to cross the line, Big Pod. I mean, you can go around in circles if you like, but I think you got to cross the line eventually. Now look. Thank you. The T450 has lasted pretty well. It's had similar kind of upgrades like over the years. I've put new SSD. It's got two SSDs in it. One like normal size laptop hard drive SSD, and it's got an M2 drive. And I've got Ubuntu on the normal laptop drive, and what's the other word? Windows 10 on the M2 drive. But I basically never use Windows on it. I can't remember the last time I used it. Yes, I can. Last time I used Windows was because I had to use Microsoft Teams for something, and for some reason it didn't work on Linux. So I didn't want to investigate it, and I knew I had Windows on there, so I just rebooted and ran Teams on Windows. And the reason I needed to run Teams was because I had a COVID test before I flew to America, and I had to have a video call over Teams with a nurse who observed me having to do the test to make sure I did it properly. It's just a normal lateral flow test at home, but they make you point the camera at the test and show that you're definitely using that test and you're not monkeying with it and you're not faking the result or anything like that. It's quite funny. And I had to use Teams for that because that's what they mandated. And so I rebooted into Windows on my T450. So that T450 has lasted pretty well. And all I ever do is like boot into Windows, do all the updates, and then shut it down again. I don't bother actually using it. I just periodically, if I'm bored, I'll wake up Windows and go, right, let's do some updates, because I don't want it to be that important day when I actually need Windows for whatever reason. And I can't use it. Way, flipperoodle. Oh, can I get across the line? No, damn it. Yeah, you're right, Burnsy. Like, every gamer PC is a ship of Theseus, isn't it? They're all. If it's a desktop, that's the best thing about the PC platform, isn't it? It's the fact that you can, replace the RAM, replace the CPU, replace the power supply, replace the hard drive, replace the fans, replace the LEDs, replace the box. New keyboard, new mouse, new displays. It's basically a new computer. Over a period of a decade, you've got a new computer. It's the best thing. Can't do that with a Switch, can you? Hey. Speaking of Switches, I need to check when and if a Gabe Gear will be arriving here at some point, because I quite like to have a play with the Steam Deck. Any of you lot ordered a Steam Deck, or are you waiting until final verdict, or is it just portable gaming not something any of you are interested in? The reason I've got one is because sometimes I fly, and sometimes I want to play games somewhere other than sat right here in my office. I want to play like downstairs, or while I'm cooking dinner, like something's cooking, I can just pick up the Gabe Gear, play on it, put it back down again, carry on cooking. And I can't really do that. Like, what if I wanted to play a round of this or something? I wonder how well this would run on it. Well, it should run okay, because I'm running it on an AMD GPU, which is way worse than the one that's in the Gabe Gear. Sorry I keep saying Gabe Gear, but it just makes me chuckle. This is a good round, which is going to be thwarted by me ruining this jump. Flipping the car. There we go, ruined it. I thought that would be a good round, but not. Oh no, I didn't realise your laptop was broken, Big Pod, because someone broke it. Oh dear, they broke the cooling. Whoopsie. The opposite of service. Adam says, you playing this on an Atari Jaguar? How dare you? Hello, Adam. How are you doing? I hope you're having a super Saturday. I am not playing this on an Atari Jaguar. I am playing this on an Hades Canyon Nook. It's got a blue skull on the lid. So, you know, it must be good. I may have turned down some of the detail in order to get my reliable 60 frames a second while I'm streaming. But yeah, it's looking pretty sweet here, I think. Or are you saying Atari Jaguar not because of the graphical fidelity, but because of the age of the game? Yes, it is an old game, I know. Teams on Linux is annoying. It's only for educational or company accounts. Yeah, you can't use it as an individual, can you? Burnsy's main laptop is a T440S with dock. Oh, yes, you've got to have the dock. I've got a box full of docks. Box of docks. Not even kidding. I have a box full of docks for each of the old ThinkPads. Some of them are just beautiful. The old... oh, God, what model is it? Is it X1? Not X1 Carbon. The old X1. I think it's called an X1. I can't remember. No, X40. I've got an X40, which is a lovely, beautiful, compact. Do a Google search, all of you now. Go and have a look at what a ThinkPad X40 looks like. It's beautiful. If I could get an X40 with like an i7 and 32 gigs of RAM, and all the relevant connectors and a decent battery and all that, that would just be the best, wouldn't it? Because the X40 is delightfully designed. It's just the width of the laptop is the width of the keyboard. You know, it's just perfect. There are some ThinkPads which are like a pinnacle of design. Some which are like workhorses and reliable, and everyone's got one, and everyone just agrees it's the best one. Like the X220 and X230, everyone just agrees those are good workhorse laptops, but they're not the best. They're not the best ThinkPads. The best ones are the ones that have unique design elements, like the X40. It's just beautiful. I spy Big Con in my rear view mirror. Yes, Monica plays Animal Crossing. Yes, you can't play that on a PC, can you? Is it on? It's not on Steam, is it? It's a Switch exclusive, Animal Crossing. Oh, dear me. That's a appalling show. Good lord. Yeah, I know. I've got Animal Crossing on the DS, and I played it a bit, but I don't know. I couldn't get into it. I don't have the patience to sit and play one game solidly for that. That is also a lie. So, let me make the assertion, and then I will undo it with facts. So the assertion is I don't have the patience to play one game solidly for hours and hours and hours all the way through. And arguably that's true, because like if you look through my Steam achievements, you'll find I've not completed any game I own. None. I just don't do it. Except one. And it was a game that I backed on Kickstarter, made by what's his name? British software developer, in inverted commas, Guru / Conman. The guy who made Populous. Oh god, what's his name? There's like parody Twitter accounts of him and stuff. Come on, someone come up with his name. The guy who made Populous, Black and White. Him. Bald guy, UK, based in Guildford. One of you needs to come up with his name, because I'm not doing anything until we get the name, right? Anyway, he made lofty claims about a game. You're in Windows. He made lofty claims about a game that was on Kickstarter, and I backed it because it sounded fun. And it's called Godus, Godus. And there are now YouTube videos about how this was a Peter Molyneux. Thank you, Adam. See? I knew one of you would get it. Yes, Peter Molyneux. So Goddess was one of these things where it was a god sim. Like Molyneux is big on his god sims, and I liked the look of it, and I liked the sound of it. Like you can manipulate the land, like make it higher and lower, and command the little people to build houses, and create population, and then chop down trees, and all that kind of and then fight other people and explore other islands and all that nonsense. I quite like that. I like open-ended games. So this is the counterpoint to I don't finish games. It's because I like open-ended games that don't have a finish. Like this. This is effectively an open-ended game. Because there is no finish. You could just get better at it. And you could get faster... faster and faster, and better, more skilled at it, and you can play more tracks and so on. There is no end to this game, and that's why I like one of the reasons why I like this. And I like all open-ended games like Rust and Minecraft and stuff like that. And I bought Goddess, and if you look on my Steam, I think you can probably see my Steam is PopeyDC. And how many hours have I clocked up in Goddess? It's like 700, something like that, which is a bit mental, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you again, DKK. Psycho. I don't know why I said DKK, because that's a currency. Idiot. They're shutting down the DS store for good. I didn't even know it was still up. Really? So, I have a few DSs. DS is a wonderful device. And I have many happy memories of playing DS games. On family holidays, my kids both had DSs, and we would take them with us to keep them entertained. Mummy and Daddy have got to go and have a shower and get dressed. Can you please entertain yourselves while we're getting dressed before we go out this evening? Okay. And they would sit there and play on their DS. Or, Mum, I'm bored. All right, play with your DS. And I have happy memories of holidays where my son would play a Batman game on the DS or something and get stuck on a level and go, Dad, can you get me past this? And I would have to go through that level like 5 times in order to get past it. But I'd get him past it, hand it back to him, and so my only interaction with that game is the hard levels, right? Or the hard for him levels. But I used to play, the mind games, Professor Bunsen Honeydew's mind games, or whatever it was called. Dr. Kimono's brain training, whatever it was called. Mr. Hashimoto's brain training. I don't know what it was, but whatever that was called, I used to play those and a few other rhythm games and stuff. But they're all open games. They're not games that have an end. And I don't ever finish games. So I have 400 games in my Steam collection. And I haven't finished any of them. Yeah, exactly. So before the iPad, we had a... I'll tell you what, I've got a photo of both my kids. We were on holiday in Spain, and I've got a photo of them lying on the bed, and on the bedside table is a triple E PC, the 900 or whatever it is, they were white netbooks, right? And it had an SD card in it full of episodes of something, I don't know, Peppa Pig or whatever. And when we wanted a bit of quiet, we'd pop that on, this little netbook, and the speakers in that were atrocious. So in this photo, I'll try and describe it for you, because I'm not going to post it. Oh, bugger. They're both laying on the bed. You imagine 2 kids laying on a double bed with their heads right near the, face down, on their front, with their heads very near the bedside table. And this little EPC plugged into the wall for power because the battery was atrocious, with full screen VLC playing Peppa Pig or something like that. I think it is Peppa Pig, actually. And because the speakers are so atrocious, their heads are mere inches from this high quality 7-inch display or whatever it was, 9-inch display, so they can hear it and see it, and that kept them entertained. Anyway, back to the DS. So yes, DS and the EPC were great for keeping the kids entertained before iPads came along. And I still have a DS, and it's still out and within reach, and I don't play any DS games on it. I use an emulator to play Sinclair Spectrum games on the DS. And the DS is the perfect device for playing, portable device for playing Sinclair Spectrum games. Now, I know some of you are American and Commodore 64 reigns supreme in America, but over here, the Sinclair Spectrum was king-ish for a bit. Everyone knew it was a bit atrocious in places, but it was popular. And as it was popular, there are thousands of games for it. And there's a super big community of people who still play those Spectrum games. There are even people who write games for it. And I've even bought a couple of games on itch recently for the Spectrum, like made in the last year. Brand new games. A bit like, what's his face? 8-bit guy who makes Commodore 64 games. Like, there are people who make Spectrum games. Actually, I wonder if he'll ever do a Spectrum port of his games. That would be interesting. He's more of a 6502 programmer, though, so I think most of the ports that he's done are 6502, other than the PC port. It'd be fun to get someone to port it to the Spectrum, though. Someone's going to look it up and tell me he's already done it. Attack of the Petsky Robots was one, and Planet X3 was the other game that he did. Anyway, my DS has one of those naughty, used for piracy, but also homebrew cards in the back, and on the SD card it's just full of Spectrum games, and a Spectrum emulator called ZXDC. That's ZXDC for you Americans, but ZXDS, sorry, and ZXDS is amazing. It uses the dual screen perfectly. So the top one is the Spectrum display, and the bottom one is used for loading, finding files, configuring your input devices, switching various options on and off. But the thing that makes the DS perfect, like as in perfect for playing Spectrum games, is that the DS display resolution is identical to the Spectrum. And because they're identical, that means there's no scaling issues. You don't get any weird artifacts when the Spectrum screen is scaled up, because there's no scaling. It's bit for bit, pixel for pixel, the same resolution as a Sinclair Spectrum. And it has the same CPU. It's a Z80. So that's cool. I mean, that's cool. That doesn't affect the performance or anything. Anyway, yeah, this guy made ZXDS, and I use it. It's the only thing I use on my Spectrum, on my DS, and it is glorious. I'm sure there's probably Commodore emulators and Amstrad emulators and all the other 8-bit machines. I'm sure there are emulators for all of those for the DS. But I don't believe any of them have the same screen resolution as the DS. And so there's always going to be either borders, top and bottom, or left and right, or weird scaling issues if you scale it up to the aspect ratio that the DS has. So there you go. Yes, 8-bit guy is good fun. He's big into his. It's funny watching 8-bit guy and RMC, used to be called Retro Man Cave, but he's just RMC now. Neil. Watching those two and LGR, Lazy Game Review, and who else? I can't remember his name. Noel's Retro Lab. Hello, welcome to Noel's Retro Lab. All of them have superb quality channels with lots of awesome content. Noel's Retro Lab is especially appealing to me because he has more of a European slant than an American slant. Because a lot of the American YouTubers, especially the retro ones, are very keen on Commodore and Atari. It's understandable because they were the leading devices out there. Commodore 64 and Apple. Commodore and Apple, the Apple II and that kind of stuff is very, is very popular. And so I still watch them, but I'm not super interested in yet another video about the Commodore 64. Whereas the thing that I like about Noel, Noel's Retro Lab is he does hardware repair, and he's good at it. But he talks you through it. Sometimes he doesn't get it right, and he'll add an addendum later and say, "Oh, well, I thought it was this component. Actually, it turns out it's this, and here's the reason why I know that." And I learn from him. Like, it's not just telling a story of where a thing came from. It's actually, this is a broken thing, and I'm going to fix it and make it work again. And that I find glorious. The whole right to repair, and you've got a computer from the distant past, and he's fixed it with modern components or with modern equivalents to the old components, whatever it might be. It's quality, and he explains it all really, really well. So Noel's Retro Lab. Also, I love his accent, so it's always nice to listen to. I don't know where he's from, whether he's from Belgium or Netherlands or something like that, but he has a distinctly European accent, generic European accent when he speaks English, and I love it. It's delightful. He's got one of my favourite voices. Yeah. So, yeah, DS, Spectrum, great. And the other reason I like Noel's Retro Lab, is because he talks about Amstrads a lot. And after I got my Spectrum, and I moved on from the Spectrum, I moved on to the Amstrad series of computers, the CPC 464 and friends. And he does a lot. It's one of his favourite computers, and he does a lot of repairs on that kind of stuff. So that's why I like that. I have empathy with that. Hello, Liam Noah. Vum today. What? Acorn. Oh man, Acorn computers. Yeah, I never had a BBC Micro Acorn. I never had any Acorn computers when I was a kid because they were just so expensive. I think I managed to get hold of one when I was like 23 or something like that. So once I had a disposable income, and they were no longer, fashionable. I think I had a BBC Micro then, but I definitely didn't have one as a kid. We just couldn't afford it. Like, my Spectrum was second hand and cost 20 quid. Bought it in a record shop in a town near me called Aldershot. I was there with a mate of mine, and this was a record shop as in vinyl records and cassettes. And it was called Elephant Records at the top of town in Aldershot. So this would have been when I was at school. So I would have been about 14 years old probably, maybe a bit less. So when would that have been? Like 80, 85, something like that. Maybe 84, 85. And there was a second-hand Spectrum in Elephant Records in Aldershot. Because my sister used to go into Elephant Records to buy vinyl, and so did my brother. And I think I must have gone in there with them. Or I might have gone in there with my mate Keith to buy some terrible rap music from the 80s. And up on the shelf behind the counter, behind where the retailer was stood, there was a box that said Sinclair Spectrum 20 quid. And I was like, oh, that's cheap. Oh, I could have that. And I begged my mum to buy it for me because I didn't have a disposable income of my own. She was like, will you use it? Will you actually use it? Because at the time I had a ZX81, and this was like the natural upgrade. And I was like, yes, I will. I absolutely will. Yeah, I'll do my homework with it. And so she bought it for me, and it turned out to be a 16K ZX Spectrum. And I was brokenhearted. I didn't twig that it was only a 16K Spectrum. It was a Spectrum nonetheless, but that meant there were two versions of the Spectrum, the 16K and the 48K. And the 16K, there were very few games for it. Like, everything worked, and it had BASIC, and you could write Z80 assembler and all that, but there were very few games that would fit in 16K. This is a new map. I have not seen this before. Oh my gosh, what is this called? Desert City 6K. Holy cow. What the hell is this? Excuse me while I freak out. I don't know where this is going. I'm just going to follow Big Pod. What does that say? Danger. What? This is mental. What? I don't understand. So there's a crossover there by the look of it. Anyway, I got the Spectrum. Ah! Oh, you cheeky corner creeping up on me like that. Undulating, rising and falling, and oh god. How am I going to do this? Yeah, so got the Spectrum, and then after I think I upgraded my Spectrum to a Spectrum Plus 2, which had a cassette deck attached and 128k of RAM. Oh my god, there's a double twist in this thing. Oh jeez. This is Yannick's monstrosity, says Big Pod. How dare you? Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is a monstrosity. What the hell is this? There's no way of getting around this without clattering into the side all the way around. Jeez. So yeah, I upgraded to a Plus 2, which was kind of a grey-coloured Spectrum, but had a proper keyboard for some value of proper. What the hell? Had a proper keyboard, cassette deck on the side, and 128k, and an AY sound chip that was popular in the day. And I think at some point I decided to get rid of my Spectrum and buy an Amstrad, and I bought an Amstrad 464 and a whole load of games. And so I moved over from Sinclair to be an Amstrad fanboy, which is why I kind of like watching Noel's repair videos about the Amstrad, because I feel the Amstrad was it was very much the third place on 8-bit home computers. There was the Spectrum, the Commodore, and the Amstrad was the also ran. You know, the other two were clearly the dominant market leaders. But it was kind of annoying because the Amstrad had a really nice architecture. It was really well made hardware. Like, had a cassette deck. It had the capability to have what do you call them? Sideways ROMs, shadow ROMs. You know, where you could expand the capabilities of the computer with additional software on a ROM, which the Spectrum kind of did, but it wasn't like baked in, as to the capabilities. It was a bodge that people did. Jeez, this is horrific. So yeah, I like the Amstrad. Good lord. Oh, this is Yannick's old monstrosity. Thank you, Monica. He made a new one last night. Okay. I look forward to seeing... with bated breath. Look forward to seeing his new monstrosity. Circuit the Fox says, looks like the highway system through Dallas. I don't think I've ever driven through Dallas. Oh, I've been in a cab from the airport to the city, but I've never, driven as in... driven a car in Dallas. Oh my god, what is this? I don't remember to do that. I don't know, do I have to jump off left, or can I not do that? I don't know. Ugh. Oh, that was my best PB for that, was it? Unsurprising, given how badly I did the first time round. Hey, Big Pod, you're going to win this. I was pretty confident on that. Because I don't... This is ludicrous. So, continuing my long and rambling story that nobody asked for. So I got the Amstrad. Oh! Sad face. I got the Amstrad, and I played that a lot, and I used to take it to my friend's house. This is the thing that blows my mind about today, right? Is my son is about the same age as I was when I had my Amstrad. And when I wanted to play a game with a friend, either he had to come to my house, or I had to go to his house, either way, right? And I would often, at the weekend, go to his house and take my computer with me. He had an Amstrad as well. He had the upgraded version. Well, no, he had the colour screen. I had a green screen because I couldn't afford the colour one. It was like another £100 for the colour screen. So I got the mono green screen, which was fine. I quite like that green screen aesthetic. He had the colour one. So I would take on the train, I would cycle with my CPC 464 in a big rucksack, and I would get the train to his house. It was like 2 stops on the train. He would meet me at the station, and then we would go into his house, and he would set up my computer in his bedroom. He had a TV that he could plug it into, and we would load games from cassette on one of them while we were playing games on the other one. So we would alternate between the 2 computers, both the same type of computer, but just like one of them's loading while the other one's playing. And you compare that with like the capability now of having stupendous computing power in the palm of your hand, in your pocket. But also, if my son wants to play games with his friends, he can just turn his computer on, open Discord, have a chat with them, and then go online and play with them. It's just mind-blowing how very different it is, the experience of wibbly wobbly compared to, you know, when I was a kid. It was all grass and trees around here. Yeah, when I was young, which was a very, very long time ago. I went into a pub last night, and I turned to my wife. We were stood at the bar, and I turned to my wife and I said, I haven't been in this pub for 30 years. I'm old enough now that I can use the phrase, I haven't been in this pub for 30 years. That's a tremendously long time to not go in a pub, right? But it means I'm very old, right? That's what that means. I once, many years ago, went to a pub with a girlfriend. We were out driving in the country, and I saw this pub, and I was like, oh, I remember coming here as a kid when I was like 10. And so this was like 10 years later, when I was an adult, and I drove there with my girlfriend of the time. I went up to the bar, and I said to the barman, I haven't been in this pub for 10 years. And he was like, oh yeah? How's that then? And I said, oh, my parents used to come here and we would sit in the car. Oh shit, I didn't cross the thing. You have to cross the thing. There you go. And he gave me a free drink. He gave me a free drink. He was like, thanks for coming back. Thanks for coming back. 10 years later, I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back again, don't worry. I honestly don't think I've been to that pub. I can even tell you where the pub is. It's called the West Meon Hut, is what it is. And it was on the way back from somewhere, family, that we would go and see. And it's on a crossroads. I remember it, having a big gravel car park. It's a very old pub. And Google it. West Meon Hut. M-E-O-N. West Meon. And, I remember me and my brother, back in the day, so we're talking 40-something years ago. 40 years ago. Holy shit. 40 years ago, kids would not come in the pub. And so my mum and dad would go in the pub, and me and my brother would sit on the back seat of the car, which was a white Ford Zephyr. Had a bench seat in the front, and it was a wonderful car. And they would go in and order drinks for themselves, and they would order 2 bottles of Coke for me and my brother, and they would come with a straw, and my dad or my mum would bring them out to the car. So mum and dad would be in the pub, and me and my brother would be sat in the car, and we would have a bottle of Coke, you know, with those straws where glass bottle of Coke. And when the straw drops down inside the bottle, you can't get it out again, so you just have to like chug the bottle to get the straw out. Anyway, that was my childhood in a nutshell. But they would bring food out as well. Usually sausage and chips in a plastic basket. Soup in a basket. And that pub sticks in my mind because I remember the car park and remember sitting in the car park in the back of my dad's Ford Zephyr, which would have been, yes, 40-something years ago. If I brake, does that mean I'll definitely... Way! Flip over! Oh. Oh. Oh, just about go over the line. Oh, my life. Sorry, I've got wittering away to myself. Let me check the chat. Peacemaker says, still got a Commodore 64 in the loft along with a load of games. Oh, wow. One day it'll be worth at least £10. Yeah, I actually have one. I think I got it from my sister. It was a... I think she bought it for one of her daughters and they didn't end up using it, or... Yeah, she wasn't particularly interested. So she gave me this Commodore 64, and it's the second generation or whatever. I don't know what you call them. It's kind of a different colour. What's it called? It's got a funny name. It's not the old one that I think they call Bread Bin. Yes, this track is mad. I'm going the wrong way. Stop. Bread Bin. Not Bread Bin. The other one. Whatever the second generation. Oh, I know what it's called. It's called a C64C, I think. And it's in this box, but it's a pretty, you know, beaten up box. And I've only got a few games. I haven't got much. And I don't think I've ever even turned it on because I don't have a ton of interest in the Commodore 64. Really. Oh my gosh, I had an idea for a game while I was out walking. So while I was watching my son play football, I walked around the football pitch 3 or 4 times in order to get my step count up. Oh, no, made it. And I had an idea for a... Oh no, that was it. I had an idea to write a thing. And the problem is I have lots of ideas and then never have the time to either start or finish these ideas, right? And so I had this idea to make... I was listening to a podcast where the presenter of the podcast was lamenting the fact that all streaming, all music these days is from streaming platforms, and generally nobody makes decent apps for playing local music because generally, I realise this is probably not true among my audience here, but most people use streaming software for music and they don't tend to have a go on. You're kidding me. Don't tend to have a local music collection, and so the presenter of this podcast was lamenting that fact that people don't make decent, like basically every music player sucks because it's either Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever music app you've got that streams and stutters and is rubbish. And I thought, do you know what? I remember my favourite music player of all time was Winamp. It really whips the llama's ass, apparently. Really whips the llama's ass, or whatever it is the guy says. I used to love Winamp, but, whoever it was that bought it, was it AOL bought Winamp? They ruined it. They completely ruined it. I still have a copy of Winamp on my Windows machine, but it doesn't scale very well for high DPI. And I know there's been some free software versions of, like, what's it called, XMMC? And there's another one I can't remember the name of. And I thought, I should make a Winamp-like application. No, Alan, don't do that. Don't do that. I thought, the UI, you could just go and get Winamp skins and use the Winamp skin to design, just duplicate Winamp, basically clone Winamp. But I wouldn't even use it because I use Spotify. I mean, I do have local music, but it wouldn't even be for me. So I need to stop thinking about making apps for other people and make apps for me. This was the other thing that... This is while I was listening to ATP, while I was having a walk. The podcast atp.fm, if you want to go and listen to it. And they were talking about music apps, but also talking about the mistake people make when making apps often is they make something that they think will be useful, but doesn't necessarily have a business model behind it, and so it gets abandoned because they run out of time or money, and they haven't thought about a business model for it. Which is interesting because I think they completely focused on the financial commercial side of it and not about the contribution to the commons of free software. But then they're Apple fanboys, so they wouldn't think that. That's a bit harsh, but you know, there is definitely a mood among proprietary app developers that, you know, every app has to make money, and there is no point making something if it doesn't make you money. I can understand that. Whee! No, too far. Oh my gosh. Oh, what? You idiot. I'll catch up with the chat and after I crash this. Fail. Oh, Psycho, thank you. Thank you for thanks. I think this track can be admitted as evidence that Yannick is a sociopath. Correct. Yeah, Big Pod said I use streaming software simply because I don't have local music. Yeah, that's partly why I do, but also I'm lazy, you know, and I want to be able to listen to the same stuff everywhere. It doesn't matter whether I'm sat on my phone or in the car or at home. But oh god, this one. Oh jeez, this is mental. This Wimpyville track. It's proper stupid. Do you like my horn? It's rather cool. I notice Big Pod doesn't even bother starting his car for this. That's how much he thinks of this. How little he thinks of this track. It's like, I'm not even going to bother putting the key in. Oh, now he has. I guess it's warm up, so, you know, doesn't need to. Is this another one that Yannick made? Oh, it's got Windows 95 on it. Brilliant. Awesome. I quite liked Windows 95. There, I said it. Burnsy says, my neighbour and very good friend regularly invites me to listen to his vinyls and chin. Oh, that's just glorious. So much more special than white noise from streaming music. Yeah. Yeah, I have a friend, my mate Dave, and he has vinyl, and he's one of these audiophiles, you know, gold cables and all that stuff. You know, it makes him happy. Well, I don't know if he still has it. I haven't seen him for a little while. But and I can see the value of, you know, having high quality audio and enjoying it. You know, sitting there with nothing else, no screens, and just listening to the audio as the producer intended it. I can see the value in that. Best Windows ever was 7. Psycho, you're a psycho. It's not. I think XP is probably one of the better ones. Although, I actually find Windows 10 more tolerable. Oh, wow. I love the lighting on that. Gamotron. Your brake lights are your tyres. That's just fantastic. Oh, sorry about that. Knocked the mic. There we go again. So there's a couple of game jams coming up that I wanna take part in. One is they're both using the same language or framework. I think, are they? No, one is using a specific language or framework, and the other one you can use anything you like. So there is and I might live stream some of this if I have the time and I enter. I have set my name. I've joined the game jam on itch.io, and I would quite like to have a go at forcing myself to complete a game. I've got like a dozen not even half finished, started game projects, and I really want to finish one. I used to do it. I used to write games and finished them years ago. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked developing games and having friends test them and then give me feedback. And but none of them were ever published. They were all just games that I wrote and shared among my friends. But I think it's a creative outlet that I miss, and I would like to get back into doing it. And so there's a game development framework called Love 2D. It's a bit of a misnomer calling it Love 2D because you can do 3D stuff with it. It's a bit like Unity used to be called Unity 3D, and now it's just called Unity because there's a 2D and a 3D bit in it. And there's probably other reasons for the brand name change. But anyway, look, check out the brakes. So cool. So yeah, Love 2D is really cool. It's based on Lua and SDL, and it's really easy to get started with. Like, you can very quickly splat some stuff on the screen and get input from the keyboard or a mouse or a gamepad and move stuff around, whatever, It's got a whole bunch of libraries and a very friendly community of enthusiasts who use it. There's a few games that have been made with Love 2D. One is Move or Die. It's on Steam. It's quite a popular game, and that was made using Love 2D. But yeah, if you want to make it like a small game and get 60 FPS out of it and do it in a way that's not too painful, you might want to take a look. But I'm thinking of joining a couple of these game jams. One's Love Jam. I think that one starts next week. Next Friday, I think it starts, and it's on. You can either do it for 72 hours just over the weekend, or you can join and develop for a whole week. I'll probably take the whole week because I'm not very good. But I might do a couple of live streams of me writing a game or coming up with the idea and making something. And I wondered if anyone would be interested in watching that kind of thing. Let me know if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Like I say, I'm not very good. They'll be basic, but I'll be learning. And the idea is that I enter that, and then maybe also enter. I'm going to mispronounce this. I call it Ludum Dare, but I think it's called Ludum Dare or Ludum Dari, or I don't know. I don't care. It's Ludum Dare. L-U-D. How do you pronounce it? I don't know even how you spell it. L-U-D-U-M? Ludum? Ludem. L-U-D-E-M. Ludum Dare. Burnsy says, are you still using Skira Construct? No. I was using Construct. I used Construct 2. I paid for a license for Construct 2, and I wrote a couple of fun things in that. I also wrote a thing in that in Construct. I made like a location tracking thing so that when I went, this is years ago, 2016, I went away with some friends on a trip. No, it wasn't 2016. It was later than that. Yeah, it must have been something like that. But I made a mobile phone app to track location and report it to an online service so people could track where we were on our journey. And yeah, I think I wrote that in Construct 2. But Construct 2 is Windows only, and it can generate Linux and web packages, software packages, but the actual game development tool is Windows only. And then when they made Construct 3, they moved to the web, so it's a hosted web software as a service. So you go to construct3.net, and it's the goal is you're creating games without code. It is code, but it's drag and drop like Scratch. Like it's very like Scratch, but way more advanced than Scratch. So yeah, I played with Construct 3 for a bit. I had a license for Construct 3 for like a year, and then I decided not to renew it this year. September it ran out. I think September. I decided not to renew it because I just wasn't using it. I wasn't developing games. I thought there's no point paying for a subscription for a license for this thing that I'm not actually using. well, I would dip into it now and then and create little prototypes and stuff, but I never actually finished anything in it, and so it's like there's not a lot of point paying. I think it was like 80 quid a year or something like that for the license, and I just didn't want to spend 80 quid a year. Like, a bit of a waste. Anyway, there's been questions about Godot or Godot. Godot. Some people say Godot, and some people say Godot. I tend to call it Godot, but whatever, doesn't matter. I don't care how other people pronounce it, it's fine. Say what you want to say. I have had a play with Godot. I haven't written anything in it. I just played with tutorials and stuff. It's a bit more complicated. And I rather quite like actually writing code. Like, as much as I like to construct, I actually like writing code, like, yeah, in a text editor, rather than dragging and dropping and stuff. And yeah, Godot has that, but it also has this, like, somewhat complicated node editor and stuff. And I just can't get on with Unity and Godot and those kind of, like, IDEs that have this whole array of, like, options. Like, anything you've got, whether it's a player or the background or the sky or, you know, the enemy ship or whatever it might be, there's like drop down after drop down and parameters and settings for everything. You can't just, well, you probably can, I don't know it well enough, but it feels like you can't just sit and write code. You have to, like, twiddle this bit and connect this to that, and it just feels like Visual Basic, and I don't really like. Woo! Well done, Big Pod. Good flight. So yeah, not saying anything bad about Godot. It's my brain. I just can't get on with it. Whereas I like Lua and I like Love2D and I like the community around it. So yeah, I'll probably use Love2D just because it fits my brain better. That's all. I happen to be friends with the founders of Skirat. They're very good people. Oh, that's interesting. What's his name? I've forgotten now. Ashley. Ashley is one of them, isn't it? I only know his name because his name is on every blog post and announcement of, yeah. Yeah, it is a lot of twiddling in Godot. That's what put me off a little bit. I know Martin had a play with it recently and he created a little game. My thing is, I quite like the retro stuff, and I quite like writing stuff in old, obsolete languages like Quick Basic and Blitz Basic and stuff like that. I quite like doing that, but it's I can't balance in my head whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. Like, so the split in my thinking is it's good because I enjoy it, right? There's that. That's a baseline. If you enjoy doing something and it's not hurting anyone, do it, right? And I enjoy writing code in Quick Basic and Blitz Basic. Therefore, you know, success. That goes in the pro list. But in the cons list, it's like, well, am I furthering my own career by learning an obsolete language? In inverted commas, obsolete. I say in inverted commas, obsolete because Quick Basic, there is QB64, which is still maintained and still puts out releases, right? And it is open source and so on. But would it be better, like, for my career, note, I'm nearly 50, for me to, like, write stuff in Rust or Go? And I don't think, you know, or use Unity or Godot, because Love2D is, you know, it's not super popular. There isn't a huge community. Certainly not as big a community as there is for Unity and Godot. And I balance these two things, and I think, oh, maybe I should stop looking backwards, only look forwards. Like, stop looking back at these old coding paradigms and these old frameworks, and look forward. I really like it. It's like, you know, people who collect old retro computers. Oh, hello, man with pile of ThinkPads. You know, they're doing it because they enjoy it. They like it. They like collecting these things, and you know, it's a hobby, and that's all this is. Like me trying to write games is a hobby. It's a thing I do in my spare time, and so I think, no, it doesn't matter what I use. It doesn't matter whether I use Unity or Godot or Love2D or Construct or also worth mentioning gdevelop. So I've mentioned Construct. Construct is proprietary. Gdevelop is like the free software, shall we say, rip-off or inspired by Construct. Gdevelop is the same kind of thing. It's a web UI. It's free software, and you can create games that run in HTML5 environments, or you can build packaged versions of your games native to Windows, Mac, Linux, and probably other platforms as well. I had a brief play with gdevelop, but because I already had a license for Construct 3, and Construct 3 was more polished and more finished, I basically didn't really look at gdevelop much. But it does look quite good, and it is maintained, and it's good that it's free software, absolutely. So I'm keen to know what other people think. You know, should you move to newer frameworks and tools? You know, bearing in mind my work revolves around Golang, because the software we use at work is written in, or the software we develop at work is written in Go, and some of it's written in Rust. So you know, I get exposed to that kind of stuff at work, and game dev stuff is a hobby. I'm never going to change my career to be a game developer. Someone make a note of that I've just said that, so I don't come back and say, well, I never said I was not going to be a game developer when I change career. I've changed my career twice. I've had 3, I think, distinct eras of my career, and I'm in the 3rd at the moment. I can't see myself changing again. Can't see myself becoming a professional game dev, especially given, like, I watch a lot of game devs, indie game devs on YouTube, and some of their videos are super fascinating about the the inside of what it's like to be an indie dev and the revenue you can generate and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard. It's really hard to make a good game. It's really hard to make a really successful game that people actually want to buy, pay money for, if it's commercial that you're interested in. There's some really good advice out there. So yeah, it's just a hobby, a tinkering thing. Psycho says, same here, love to write code but not dragging and dropping. Yeah. But he says, I love to learn to code but I just don't know where to start. Yeah. Python is like that universal standard thing that everyone says when you say, oh, I want to learn to code. Yeah, just Python. The thing about Python is it's so accessible. There is so much in the way of tutorials, documentation, and it's not obscure in any way. There's so many people who know Python and so much example code you could look at. There's so much of it that it's hard not to learn a bit. I've learned a bit of Python. I don't know it that well. But yeah, there are like Pygame tutorials which are great for bootstrapping, and there's some great books on Python. And you know, any web search will turn those up. There are like 2 or 3 really great books about Python. I think the thing about learning a new language is you have to have a purpose for it. You can't just wake up in the morning and go, right, today I'm going to learn Haskell. I mean, some people's brains are wired so they can do that, and they do that. But for me, I have to have a reason for it. So the only I've looked at Go in the past, but it's only because I now work at Influx on Telegraph, which is written in Go, that I've picked it up a lot more, because I have a purpose, I have a reason for learning it. And the same thing with Love 2D. I've tinkered with it, but I think what will push me is, entering a game jam that will force me to learn it fast track in a week, because I'll have to in order to make something that works in a week. By the end of the deadline. And even if I don't get something finished, I'll have made more progress than if I didn't look at it at all and didn't attempt to do the jam. I think a lot of people, when they enter a game jam, they're like, set out a goal of what they want to create, and a certain percentage won't get there. yeah, the game. You look at any game jam on itch.io. Like, just go to itch.io/jams. Right. Pick a game jam. Pick the love jam from last year. There's like 30, 36, 39, something like that entries. That's fantastic. 39 people or 39 teams created something that didn't exist before that jam existed. But if you scroll by the rankings, and the rankings are like votes from other people, and scroll right to the bottom, you'll see the lowest ranked ones. And look at the description, and you'll see people saying, oh, I started and unfortunately, you know, my exams came up, or I had to study or something, or there's something else, some other factor came along that stopped them finishing it. And you compare that with the ones at the top of the list, where people have voted like super high, and they, you know, focused for a week or a weekend or however long the jam was, and got a thing made. Well, you know, almost certainly isn't the best game ever, but they made a thing, and they released the thing, and that's it. That's all you need to do, is make the thing. So that's what I want to do, is join a game jam to force me to learn a programming language like Love2D and Lua a bit better. So what I might do some noodling with Love2D leading up to that, or I might just save it and do the stream starting next Friday when the game jam starts. Maybe. I don't think I'm going to do a full-time stream because, you know, I have a job. So I can't just sit there and do that all the time. Hello, the Ross Madness. I don't know how to code except some bash scripting. I've looked at Python and Go but never found the motivation. That's the thing, is you need something to you need something to motivate you. And because I'm not job hunting, so I'm not trying to like pad my CV out with like interesting and weird and esoteric programming languages that I know, or new ones that I know, and I'm not writing like a new desktop environment like the Pop OS guys are, and they're using Rust, and I'm not currently creating desktop applications, so I'm not using Flutter and Dart or anything. So yeah, you need a motivator. You need something to motivate you to do it. The thing I like about Python is it's pretty readable. There are some languages, like, you know, the obvious canonical example of languages that are hard to read is Perl, which looks like line noise. But yeah, there are some languages that are easier to read than others, and I find Python pretty okay. Oh my gosh, have I been streaming for over 2 hours? Good lord. Oh, Big Pod, you use Go. Oh, right, I didn't realise that. Hello, wall. This track, for those who don't know, was designed by Yannick's daughter. So psycho tendencies to run in their family, it seems. I love this track. Lots of big straights, so you can pick up a lot of good speed, and a few weird bumps and jumps and things. And obviously the world's greatest Linux distribution, Ubuntu Mate, is featured in the advertising. Ubuntu Mate. It's amazing how far Martin's taken Ubuntu Mate from the humble beginnings. The fact that he's getting hardware sent to him by people to port and make sure Ubuntu Mate works well on it, which is great. What they called GPD, that's it. GPD seemed to send Martin one of everything, so he makes sure that like the touchscreen works and mouse works and all the internal gubbins work. It's pretty impressive. He's a clever guy, Martin. Ooh. My worry about doing a coding live stream is people will see just how terrible I am at software development. that's the downside. Is people will be like, "Oh my god, you wrote it like that! Oh my god, you idiot!" That's more of my worry. Because this, I don't mind people saying, "Oh, Alan, you are pretty terrible at this game." It's like, yeah, I know. Maybe I should just do the same. Like when people say, "Why are you coding like that, you idiot?" I'll say, "Yeah, well, yeah, it's because I'm an idiot. I don't know it. I don't know it very well." Burnsy says, "Gone off GPD, the market has exploded and they've gone bland." Are you comparing them to like the Aya Neo and stuff like that? The other companies that are making portable gaming devices? Just notice Gamertron's got "please turn over" on the bottom of the car. That's superb. Sweet. Can't work out to switch to a subscribed car skin. So, the way you do it is, number one, you subscribe. And then you find that file is a zip file on your local file system. So you subscribe in Steamworks, then you launch the game, and when you launch the game, a little pop-up comes up and says, "Downloading subscribed content." Oh, this is Big Pod's track. Whee! So you launch the game and it will download the zip file which contains the skin. And you just leave that where it is, that zip file. Do you do anything with that zip file? Yeah, you put that somewhere public. So I have put mine on popey.com/tm2s, I think. So you'll probably find if you go to popey.com/tm2s, meaning TrackMania 2 Stadium, you'll see the zip file right there. So you put the zip file somewhere public, web server you have access to, and then once you've done that, you then copy that URL. So in my case, that would be popey.com/tm2s/ and then the name of the file. And you create another file next to the zip file, wherever the zip file has been downloaded on your computer, which is easy to find. It's in .steam, Debian installation, Steam apps, common, game name, somewhere buried deep in there. Just do a find and you'll find it in there somewhere. Create another file in that same place, next to the zip file, and call it, if the file is called banana.zip, call the file banana.zip.loc. So banana.zip exists, you create banana.zip.loc, the locator or location file or whatever they call it. And in that file, in that .loc file, is one line of text, and it is the URL you copy and paste, you copied out of the web browser. So it's just the URL to where your zip file can be found by all the other players. That's it. Then you go into the game and you change your skin to whatever skin you subscribe to. Then join the game. And when you join the game, people who join after you, not people who are already in the game, but people who join the server after you, will see your skin, because your machine will tell everyone else which skin you have and provide the LOC file. Oing. Oh, you idiot. And the LOC file contains the URL to your zip file, and then everyone else's computers will download the zip file. Job done. Easy peasy. It's not that easy, but it's a bit of a pain. But that is how you do it. It's basically download the zip, put the zip somewhere online, public, create an LOC file next to the zip file, which is called banana.zip. Your LOC file is banana.zip.loc. Don't make the mistake that I made of calling it banana.loc. It has to be banana.zip.loc. It contains a URL to the public place where you have put banana.zip. You don't need to put banana.zip.loc publicly, because that will just be in whatever folder the banana.zip is on your local machine. Job done. No worries. Hope it works. Give me a shout if you want me to help you test it. I can quit the game and rejoin, and then I'll tell you if I can see your car. But that's all you do. The interesting thing is the skin selector thing is a bit rubbish, because it's alphabetical. So if you download, like, you know, whatever this one is, my one starts with the letter H. You have to scroll to the H named skins to get this. Bit too hard on the brakes there. Whoopsie. Whee! I'm really terrible at this game. Oh, personal best. Maybe if I say that just before every checkpoint, if I just say I'm really terrible at this game every time, maybe I'll get. Oh, I'm not going to do it there. Maybe I'll get a PB. Yeah, got one. That's the trick. That's how you do it. Yeah, it's not going to happen again, is it? Please God, make it happen. Okay, I don't know how I'm managing to do this. How am I getting personal bests all the time? Whee! See you later, big pod. Again. Keep it up, keep it up. Vroom! Oh, I lost a bit. Oh, hello, big pod. You caught me up. How'd you manage that? Come on, come on, come on, come on. He's overtaken me. Should have known he's very good at his own track. Oh, mind you, I give myself a personal best there, I think. I think so. Nice. Right. Definitely going to win this time, he says. Come on, big pod. Get out of the way. Oh, oh dear. Screwed that up. Definitely not winning now. Ooh, ooh, ooh. It's all gone quiet. Ah! I think this is going to be my last track. Big Pod's a long track. Will be my last one today. Have some chores to do. Some cleaning, tidying, that kind of stuff. Nothing super interesting. But I think I might have a go at doing a bit of noodling with Love2D maybe later. Wah. Whee! Good lord. On the ground there's loads of skids that just slam straight into a wall. It's quite good fun. need to try and catch up Big Pod, which is hard because he is good, and this is his track. He is at home. I'm not saying he lives on a dirt track, but you know, he did make this nonsense. Yeah, there's no way I'll catch him now. Boom. God. Thank you, Psycho. Thank you so much. Enjoy your dinner. Yeah, I've not figured out what I'm going to cook tonight. I might make a curry, I think. That'd be nice. What time is it? It's 4:10 here. Slightly washed casual. What? What? What's everyone else up to rest of the day? I know what I really should do is put some stuff away in the loft. The abyss of our loft. There's some stuff still left out from like Christmas decorations and stuff still left out. It's a bit late, but I should put them away. As he says, I was supposed to go out for a mop chop. Yes. Yeah. Flipping Eunice. I've booked a mop chop for next weekend. My brother is a hairdresser, so I just send him a WhatsApp. Hey, any chance for a haircut? And he very kindly slots me in. So I need to, because I'm going to be doing some tutorial videos and my hair looks awful, and I need to sort my hair out before I do these tutorial videos. I realise that's not the primary reason people are tuning in for these tutorials, is to see my wonderful hair, but I would like to, yeah, it's getting a bit messy. I did some tutorial videos a little while ago and the makeup artist said, have you ever considered having shorter hair? I was like, okay, yeah, I get the hint. Alan needs a haircut. Yes, makeup artist. Yeah, we went to a proper studio and did some tutorial videos, and they had a makeup artist who kept coming in and touching up our faces with makeup, and one of the women who was doing tutorials had got quite long hair, and they had to keep getting it out of her face and making sure it was consistent between one shot and the next. It was quite hilarious. Oh, you've got an NVIDIA Shield, Bernsey. Interesting. I know Wimpy's got one of them. Do you have to pay a subscription or something for... What's it called? What's it called? GeForce Experience, isn't it? Is that what it's called? That's the streaming thing, isn't it? I guess. Can you do local games as well as remote? I don't know. I've never actually seen a NVIDIA Shield in person. I know Wimpy's got one, but I've never seen one. Right, come on, by God. Let me win. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. There we go. Right. Now all I have to do is stay in front. Fail. What is the best way to get over that? Because that is just ludicrous, that lump there. Oh, like that, I guess. Keep the wheels on the ground, I think, is the... Landing on an uphill is brutal. It's like instant stop. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Come on. I'll stay in front of Big Pod. Yeah. Oh shit. Lost a bit of time there. Come on. Boom. Winner. Finally, get 1 point back. Oh, hi, Luke. Only used it in the past with the old model, but not so great. I haven't used it since, just by Android games and emulators. Ah, yes. Just wish more popular games supported Android TV controllers. Can you not just use any Bluetooth controller, or are some games like touch and touch only, and or accelerometer only, and they just don't support external controllers? I don't think I've ever. Oh yes, I have. I was gonna say I don't think I've ever attached a controller to an Android device. Whee! But I have. I have got an 8-bit do. I call them 8-bit do, but I have a feeling they're supposed to be pronounced 8-bit do, as in Nintendo. I've got an 8-bit do controller, and I think I've connected that via Bluetooth to a Android device, but I never found it super satisfactory, actually. My favourite controller at the moment is the one I'm using right now, which is the Stadia controller. I've got two of them, one here at home and one at work. Wired. I don't really care that you can't use them wirelessly. Doesn't matter. Although, have they done a firmware update or something that lets you do Bluetooth on them now? A vague recollection. Or no, I'm thinking of the Steam controller, aren't I? Because they added a firmware update that let you pair via Bluetooth. Anyway, that's my primary controller, is Stadia. I think I just like the way it feels in my hand, and the micro switches for the D-pad are super clicky, and I quite like that. So playing like emulated, like 8-bit retro stuff where they don't support analog and you have to use a D-pad for digital up, down, left, right, simulating a micro switch style digital joystick as opposed to an analog joystick. I find it's very pleasant, a very pleasant joystick experience. Burnsy bought the Shield back when YouTube and Amazon stopped being friendly. Yes. Some games are touch only, no controller. Ah. Mobile Call of Duty. There's Call of Duty Mobile. Today I learned. Use any Bluetooth controller you want with the Shield. Have the NVIDIA controller and the Game G4S. Yeah, I've got a Steam controller on my desk right in front of me, but I don't use it very often at the moment because I'm in favour of the Stadia controller. Really like Stadia controller. Yeah, the 8-bit do controllers are quite good quality. They seem robust and they get firmware updates and stuff. But the problem I had was that I wasn't dedicating them to one use, which I should have done. And so I was sometimes connecting them to a computer and sometimes to an Android device. And then the problem with that is, you know, the way you connect them is just a bit of a faff. You know, with one of them you have to hold down this button and turn it on, and with that one you got to hold down the other button and turn it on, and it's just bleh. Which is why I quite like having a wired controller, because you know you just plug it in the USB port and it worky. There's no faffing around. It's just going to work when you plug it in. And because I'm not sat on the other side of the room, it's fine. It doesn't matter that it's not wireless. However, the Steam controller, I do love. I have a Steam Link in the lounge. I have a Steam Link in the lounge which connects to this PC over the network. And often me and the kids play multiplayer games in the lounge. And all three of us will use a Steam controller. Works really well. I remember buying... I think I bought my Steam Link when I was in the States years ago. Where would that have been? Why was I there? Why was I in the States? It was in Seattle, maybe. I think I might have been over there for a conference, like Linux Fest Northwest or something like that. And while I was there, I went to some game store. I was like, please, sir, give me all of your Steam controllers. And bought like 3 controllers from this shop. And stuffed them in my suitcase and flew home. Yeah. Stadia, nice controller. Shame about the service. Yeah. Well, it looks like that's dead now, isn't it? Really? I think. It's just going to be white box for other people. I wonder if they'll use it for stuff like gaming in hotel rooms and stuff like that. Like streaming to a hotel room TV. And all the hotel has to do is put a controller in your room. Or, you know, let you borrow one from reception or whatever. And then you can just play streamed from Stadia without the hotel having to have any infrastructure at all other than a Stadia controller that they, you know, lend you and you get back. And if you don't give it back, they just withhold your hotel deposit. Seems like a neat service, I guess. It's just a shame that Stadia sucks. It's funny that even Stadia succumbs to this polarity of opinion. Like, I remember seeing people getting super passionate about how atrocious it was, and then other people super passionate about how it was the future of gaming and how anyone who says it's rubbish hasn't used it. It's like, well, no, they have used it. It's just it didn't work for them the way it works for you. Like, I could not get it working well here in any browser. And my internet connection is decent. It's like 100 megabit. But it just was not good enough. The lag was appalling in any game I played. Unless it was something like, you know, Tetris. And even then, at a fast level, it would be pretty appalling. But yeah, I'm sure it is great if you live in Silicon Valley and are within 100 yards of Palo Alto or something. But for me, it just didn't work. So I had the trial, the free, like, however many month trial that came with the Stadia controller, the first Stadia controller that I bought. And it was rubbish. I tried it a few times and just couldn't get it working. So I just gave up. I just used the controller as a local controller. And I have not played Stadia since. I've tried it once or twice. I haven't played in anger, but I thought, oh, I wonder if it's improved, or I wonder if, you know, it will now work. And no, it doesn't. Well, yeah, you could say it was never really alive. But, I mean, they were taking money from people and people were playing games, so... Yeah. Is that 5 points to me? Did I win? I won. Ha-ha, Big Pod. I won on your track. Yeah, I'll make a track and you can beat me on that. Right, I think that's it for today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for all the super questions. And thank you for the lovely donations. I appreciate that. I hope everyone has a good rest of your Saturday, rest of your weekend. And maybe see you again sometime, here or somewhere else. Have a good day, everyone. Ta-ta.